Beneath all striving is a sacred remembering that you were never separate in the first place. We'll look at what needs to happen for your life to feel in sync with the source, with the flow of creation. It's almost remembering in a sense that is not relative to memory. It's you see what you are by noticing how your memory creates something different. How when you act from something that your brain has consciously stored in its cells, memory, when you act through that, then there isn't the freedom of spontaneity. We'll look at children as a brilliant example because when you look at how a child moves, you can see the brain developing, right? It goes from crawling to then waddling around, moving a little bit. You can watch the development of that brain in the memory. But there's a tightrope, and that is essentially that the child is free of the sense of self until a certain point. And when you watch a child free of the sense of self, you can learn a lot through observing that nature. Because number one, it's spontaneous, right? And to be spontaneous, you can't be locked in memory. Now, I'll create the bridge here, which is we'll look at the example of, let's say that you have a memory of when you were attacked by a dog, right? And then you can feel that memory creating how you live in the moment if you can notice yourself walking on the street, then maybe a dog is behind a fence, but he runs at you, right? And all in a moment, you feel that same sense of fear, that same whatever you're feeling. If you can feel that and understand, oh, I have a stored memory in my mind from when I was attacked by a dog that has recreated how I perceive this dog running at me, even though it's a different time, place, etc., etc. All the details could be extraordinarily different. This is the importance of having awareness around how your memory will create your future if you do not first be aware of how that mechanism works. If you start to watch, oh, I can see it happen in my mind, in my being, in my heart, the moment that your peripheral, your eyes were snapped to that dog running at you behind the fence, all in that moment, you can understand how this thing works, the sense of self in memory and knowledge and experience. See, I'm not at all saying memory is bad. There's a level of freedom that can only be moved through when you are free of memory projecting into the moment. You can't want that or seek that. What you can do is learn through watching yourself in that example where the memory of you being attacked by a dog gets brought up. I use that example because I wanted to go a little bit in depth there. Now, when you watch that, then you start to see that your moment to moment reactions, but your relationships also are built upon what we're talking about. Whereas if you can treat people in a way where you're not offended, right? Because everyone in certain moments of their life is going to have an interaction with another human or animal that almost scars them, right? Whether someone makes fun of you, whether someone triggers you in any manner, there's a million different details, right? It could be jealousy, it could be insecurity, it could be fear, it could be anger, it could be comparison. But What happens when you're aware in your moment to moment relationship as this arises, as you see the memory guiding your behavior, right? Then you can move back to that childlike spontaneity and freedom. What happens in our world when we have a lot of humans who are awake, meaning that they see, that they hear? Seeing and hearing has so much more to do with internal awareness than how the external. Because if you can hear internally, that will make your external movement much simpler. It'll allow for you to dance in this world rather than tiptoe through this world. And that's big, right? That is a total changing of your aura, of your vibration, your frequency, your mood, your energy, your emotions. It will change your physiological cells. When you do this internal psychological work, it changes everything about you. You know, and I'll go to something kind of practical. Let's make this bridge where some people are bald, right? And you could sum it up. I'm not saying genetics don't matter, but I am saying that the way that you age isn't solely material. Like the amount of wrinkles you have in your face, your baldness or your abundance of hair, that comes down to what we're talking about here. Because if you're spontaneous, if you're free, if you're not always worrying, stressed, guilty, bullying yourself, judging yourself, right? Because you're aware of how the self-judgment was derived via memory, you watch this mechanism enough, it creates a shift in who you are. It shifts how you show up. And then that creates this space for you to be a bit looser, calmer, and that'll make you look better. Of course, I'm not saying that the material doesn't matter here. You do work out, you have to groom yourself, you be organized, right? Take care of yourself. But all simultaneously, when you do this internal work, it de-stresses you because the stress is almost always drive via the memory. And if you shine light on the moment that your stress, your fear, your anger, whatever that energy is arises, then you learn how to let go. And if you're not holding on to things, right? I'll use this. I love this. I watched the video last week and the professor, the man, he says, now how much does this water weigh, right? And they give logical answers which aren't wrong. And he goes, it matters how long I'm holding it, right? If you hold the water bottle just for a few seconds out with your arm extended, then it's fine. You hold that water bottle for 5 minutes, arm extended, a little bit different. You feel it. Hold it for an hour and you get the point. Hold it for 24 hours. It's not what you're carrying, it's how long you hold on to it that matters. So this is how people, and of course, right, everyone has different journeys, different paths, right? Some people born into royal families, some people born into poverty. Life is like that. But first of all, we can't resist the hand that we've been dealt. And then second of all, it really is this integration of the internal awareness that creates your external world, right? So you need memory, you need knowledge, you need experiences because we need to have skill sets to create an impact, to generate wealth, to make this world more efficient, smoother, holistically in alignment with wisdom, with intelligence, right? Einstein says the problem cannot be solved at the same level of consciousness that it was created. So there is a hidden art, if you will, in awareness. As you're aware, it'll get you better results in the practical things too. Now, how soon the results come, that is something that it depends on many details. So it's not about pursuing with a ambition to get something as soon as possible. And that can be the tricky part about business, about making money too, because you can make money fast, right? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. But it's really important that we understand how to generate money in a way that suits us well, right? That aligns with who we are. And that can be one of the harder things to figure out. or to let yourself see clearly. Sometimes you have to do a lot of things that aren't aligned to get to the root of, oh yeah, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't live that way. And that's okay. That's part of the journey. So, how the illusion of separateness creates suffering. This is really, so I'm not saying I walk around, you have to be able to understand the space and the lack of space. If there are individuals around you who can't hear, why are you going to try to make them hear? That's your own trap. But the illusion of separateness is almost within that. It's realizing that everyone's on their journey, but we're all together. So the pacing of humanity's learning, the pacing of consciousness expanding in each individual form, you're not attached to forcing that. And when you see clearly, then you feel and you let the moment guide you. You know, yesterday, I was at the gas station and a lady got out of her car. And I did not think twice about this. I just go to her. I just got hit by some good smells. And she smiled. Then one, two, she goes, I like your tattoos. And I'm just like, I appreciate you. And I leave it there. The bottom line is, I am not seeking anything from her. I just spontaneously, it's good to be playful. And that's what I'm really talking about here. Is sure, we're all in individual forms. How can you drop your motives to create the space to be playful, right? A childlike spontaneity, a playfulness, that keeps you young. That keeps you alive. And you know, right? You've heard that quote before. A lot of people die at 25 and are not buried until 70. So I'm not saying I have it all figured out. I can tell you there are keys to this life. And being alive, being vital, having free energy to be spontaneous and playful. What is more important than that? What's more important than being free to meet others where they're at, right? Sometimes you don't meet them where you're at. Sometimes you stand your ground. But that's also spontaneous. You don't go, oh, this guy needs a lesson because he did this to me last week. No. It's just sometimes in the moment, you stand your ground because that's the fuel. That's what the winds of the universe are providing you with. So why we forget what we are? Ultimately, if you take everything into account that I've just said, it's the memory ruling our lives, the ambition, the drive of who we want to become. Look at who you are and then change from there. And also look at what you can't be and change from there. But don't chase an image because the image, more often than not, is not at all who you're meant to be. There's a difference between who your mind wants to become and who you actually are meant to be. Now you have to walk that tightrope. And that's why I make these videos. Hopefully they help you walk that tightrope. Now, what to do to return to presence? This is a holistic integration, meaning that you play, but you're also organized. So you plan, but you don't overplan, right? You outline things that you can't be, use them as a reverse psychology, if you will, because it's a lot easier to know what doesn't align with you than to know what the truth is before you've ever tasted it. And even once you've tasted the truth, that means that you know the way that you found truth wasn't by acting like you know something. You find truth when you show God, when you show the universe somehow, some way, that you're doing your best to listen to your heart. And listening to your heart is a little bit different than listening to your mind's ideas and ambitions and desires. I'm not saying the mind is bad. I'm saying your gut has knowledge, information, intuition, your heart does, and your mind does. Learn how to see where your falling off the track. Learn how to feel when you're going the wrong way. If you can admit, if you can sense, oh wait, yeah, that day it didn't feel right. What did I do? How did I create that day that didn't feel right? And be genuine about that with yourself, you'll change. You can only change things that you're aware need to change. So, recap: the illusion of separateness creates suffering. How does that happen? It's the memory that triggers the thought. But if you're aware of it as it arises, then you can question it. Then you can see what's been ingrained into you. Then you can change. Why we forget what we are? Well, we have to use our knowledge, our experiences, our memory. And it's like the yin yang, the right side, the left side. How do we create a symbiosis between the two? A lot of us, we're just hinged. We're too safe in the logical world. We seek security too much in the logical. But you need to be wise, right? You need to have shelter. You need to tie your camel, if you will. You need to wear shoes, like simple things. I don't even feel like I have to say this stuff because you guys are all good on the logical. But when it comes to the other side, it's this walking and dancing and diving into the abyss that is actually what you need to do. And that can be difficult, but that's why you need to do it. So, what to do to return to presence? I mean, we gotta create space. We create space through noticing what is wrong in our lives and then changing. It doesn't have to happen overnight. It can happen overnight. That's up to where you're at. I thank you so much for listening. Let's go. If you want to learn more, just check the links in the description. Subscribe to the newsletter. I put my heart into those emails. I put my heart into these videos. So if you just resonate with what I put out here, you'll get real value in those emails. Promise you that.